Welcome into 5-Wide Fantasy. Today we're talking wide receiver 4s with the upside to finish in the top 12 at the wide receiver position, finish as a wide receiver 1. I've got 3 players for you today, 3 wide receivers of course, and as well, this is something that happens every season. If you guys didn't know, there are pretty much guys every single year that are being drafted in this category here from wide receiver 36 to wide receiver 50 roughly that end up doing this. There were 3 guys last year that made it happen. Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper, and Devontae Smith. All 3 players, the way they made it happen was very, very different, but I'm going to take these 3 players and I'm going to have 3 guys for you that I would compare to each of these players and why I think they can make it happen this year. Guys, if you enjoy this video, be sure to let me know by liking the video, subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate it if you do. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers here on the OwnersBox YouTube channel. And as well, comment down below with any players you think that are in this category that can make that jump this season. And as well, we'll be posting now moving forward today, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll have Saturday and Sunday videos too. So really ramping things up because now we're in August. Let's get to our 3 players. First player up here is Jahan Dotson. He's right now going as the wide receiver 40 at the end of the 8th round. He finished last season as the wide receiver 43, but did miss some time. Was the wide receiver 30 in fantasy points per game. I believe he played 12 games last year, but the way I would compare Jahan Dotson heading into this season would very much be that of Christian Kirk. Like Kirk steps into an offense, obviously new for him, but also under a new play caller. And that is where you can find tons of value in fantasy football, is looking at teams that change play callers, that are going to change schemes. And for a lot of people, they'll go off of what they saw last season when things are set to change drastically for how the offense operates. And that was the case for Christian Kirk. The slot under Doug Peterson was a highly targeted area for this team. But with the situation here for Jahan Dotson, it is one where the play caller changes to Eric Bieniemy, and obviously, Bieniemy wasn't the primary play caller in Kansas City, but he was still very much involved, obviously learning from a system that has been incredibly successful under with the Chiefs and Andy Reid. So what I think we're going to see this season from Washington is a significant increase in pass rate. Last year, they were 23rd in the league in pass rate. Meanwhile, the Chiefs were 8th. Projecting here, last season they were right around a 52% pass rate, while the Chiefs were more 62%. Now, do I think they're going to throw the ball as much as the Chiefs? Honestly, potentially. You might not think that because obviously they don't have Patrick Mahomes, but I think there's going to be a near 10% increase in passes for this offense. And the reason for that is not only the change in coordinator, but also because of the fact that this is a team that probably isn't going to be as good as the Chiefs were last season. So that's going to be more passing game scripts. Trailing game scripts lead to more throwing of the football. I think this team, of course, I think they're still a solid team. The division's just so tough that I don't see them being a team that finishes and gets into the postseason. So that's a great profile here for a receiver to break out. Dotson last year was on pace, if he played the full season, was on pace to be top 9 in end zone targets. He was very efficient with his end zone targets. He had 6 end zone 6 touchdowns this season that were on plays that were targeted inside the end zone. Now, the question for me is, with how talented of a player Dotson is, I thought he was really good last year when he was on the field. Could we see him run some more routes in the slot? That's been a favorable place to target for that Chiefs offense in years past. We saw it last year with Juju Smith-Schuster as well, who got to 100 targets on the year. I think there's a chance Dotson's moving around in this offense, could see more routes from the slot because his profile definitely indicates this. This is a guy who's very, very shifty, a great route runner, that they could be moving around offensively. And what's great to see is how he closed out last year. He was the wide receiver 11 in fantasy points per game in the final 6 weeks of the year. So that's great to see. He's capable of being this type of guy. We saw it from him last season in a really poor offense. But also as well, I like the matchup here with Sam Howell, assuming he wins the starting job. He had the 5th highest ADOT of receivers that had 50-plus targets on the season. Howell was a guy at UNC that was very prone to attacking things downfield. He was consistently top 15 in deep ball attempts at UNC. His 36 deep ball touchdowns in 3 seasons was thoroughly impressive. He had 18 in one of those seasons as well. So he was very good deep downfield. This could be something that Bieniemy looks to attack. I know it's a team that probably lives in some of these more intermediate areas, but Dotson's a guy that can take the top off the defense for sure. And what's great to see is my biggest concern when he was coming into the league is his success against press coverage. I didn't think he was physical enough, but he had a 79% success rate against press, 80 against zone. He's great against zone coverage, and 70% against man. So I like Dotson. I think it's a player that obviously Terry McLaurin's getting all the looks here, but Dotson could be a player in his second year in the league, that second year breakout that could be coming for him. in an offense that should see some major changes this year. Next up is Cortland Sutton. He's going right now as the wide receiver 45 in the middle part of the 10th round. He's being drafted right where his finish was last season. That's another reason why I really love him. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 45 right now based on his finish last season as the wide receiver 45. Where I'm making this comparison to between the three guys, this to me is a prime Amari Cooper from 2022 type comparison for Cortland Sutton. He's got the ability to make big plays. He's constantly a guy that's being targeted downfield, but he also with his size has great touchdown upside. He had the 7th most end zone targets last season. Barely scored any touchdowns. This offense was terrible last year. They only scored 1.7 touchdowns a game, which was 28th in the league. Obviously, this offense failed to score many points last season, and Sutton paid the price for it. But what I really love here, another team, this is the theme here of making a coaching change that's going to significantly benefit this player. The coaching change goes to Sean Payton, and he also brings with him Joe Lombardi. And when you bring in Joe Lombardi, or when you bring in Sean Payton's offensive scheme, you're going to see this X receiver position be very, very valuable. We've seen it in the past with other guys. We've seen it with someone as talented as Michael Thomas, who put up 4 straight wide receiver 1 seasons with Joe Lombardi and Sean Payton. And then we also saw for Joe Lombardi, while Sean Payton was out of the league the last 2 years, Mike Williams posted a wide receiver 10 season in 2021. He saw a 44 target increase from the year prior in this X receiver spot in the Chargers offense, and then finished wide receiver 30 last year despite missing 4 games in 2022. So even with someone as talented as Michael Thomas was during that time period, we saw him be incredibly successful. And then we see Mike Williams, who isn't in that upper echelon of talent, still put together a top 12 season once Joe Lombardi arrived in Los Angeles. So I love that for Sutton. This is what he is. He's the X receiver on that outside. And what I think you're going to see from Sutton, you're still going to be able to see the touchdowns because I think he'll be a great red zone target with his size. But more importantly, this is a guy who's had a below 60% catch rate in every single season. And that's because his looks and his opportunities are coming too constantly downfield and with really poor quarterback play. Russell Wilson was not good with the deep ball last year. His quarterbacks in previous seasons, your Drew Locks, what am I thinking of? I guess Osweiler might have been around in his early parts of Sutton's career, but you haven't seen guys that can push the ball downfield effectively. And now what we'll see is him used in more intermediate areas of the field. That's exactly what happened to Mike Williams, as that similar profile to Sutton, as a guy who was a deep ball threat. But once Joe Lombardi showed up, he was used, and the reason his targets increased so much is because he was used in more intermediate areas of the field, and that's going to boost that catch rate significantly. This is a guy who's posted 100-plus targets in a season, but the catch rate was so low that he wasn't nearly productive enough. So I love Sutton as the wide receiver 45. There is a scenario if this offense gets back to what we expected it to be, Sutton is going to be a massive beneficiary and be able to be a top 12 guy. And finally, we're getting to our last wide receiver. That is Elijah Moore of the Cleveland Browns. He was the wide receiver he's being drafted as the wide receiver 47 right now, going in the later parts of the 10th round. So we compared Christian Kirk and Amari Cooper to the 2 previous guys. This is my prime comparison to Devontae Smith. This is an offense that I am very, very confident in taking a massive step this season. And that means Amari Cooper can return on his draft price, and so can Elijah Moore. And the reports out of training camp have been very, very good. Moore is being used all over the field. You've seen him in the slot, outside. I've even seen some highlights of him getting used in the rushing game too. It's because this is an incredibly talented player that fell out of favor with management with the Jets. He had a 4.40 time. He also had an agility score from Player Profile in the 98th percentile, and he's consistently, both years in the league, been a top 25 receiver in route win rate. So I love Elijah Moore's talent. I think it's a shame that the Jets weren't able to use him. And we've got, this offense here in Cleveland that's in position to have a massive year. The offensive line is one of the best in the league. Deshaun Watson is a player that was one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion, top 3 quarterback in the league just a couple of years ago. And then we have, an offense that I think part of Watson's struggles was definitely not being able to work with the team the entire season and then showing up for the final 6 games. But I also think it's because of a lack of talent outside of Amari Cooper, with Donovan Peoples-Jones being that wide receiver too. You have an elite separator here. This is a dream pairing of 2 players. You have a receiver that is incredibly talented and capable of creating separation. And then you have Deshaun Watson, who like I mentioned, the struggles of talent, but also he's a player that had tons of time in the pocket to work and wasn't able to be successful offensively. Now you have a guy who's proven to be able to get open and be able to make plays for you. So I know Elijah Moore is capable of being a massive impact fantasy player for you, and he proved it in 2021. In the final 5 games he played in 2021, he was the wide receiver 2 during that span. He was hitting his stride, and then obviously things kind of fell apart in the offseason. He wasn't happy with his role in the offense, and things obviously took a massive turn from there in 2022. He was just not playing games when he was healthy, when he was when he was available and dressed. They weren't putting him on the field at all. So using 2022 as a way to talk about this guy is kind of unfair to his talent. It's hard to hard for me to be able to project what he can do when you haven't seen the numbers, but I'm very confident in what he's stepping into in Cleveland. So I absolutely love him. And there's room, like other offenses we've seen in the NFL, that are very good and can give you 2 guys that finish top 12, much like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown did last season. All right, those are our wide receiver 4s with wide receiver 1 upside. Tomorrow, we're talking running back 3s with RB1 top 12 upside. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you do not miss that. Get those notifications on. If you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to drop a like, comment down below. Plenty of you guys are letting me know players you don't like that I've been talking about. Let's hear about some players that you do like to be able to do this. It happens every single season. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.